My name is James. I'm 28 years old, and I am going to tell you the most shameful, most honest thing I have ever admitted about myself. Not because I want your sympathy, but because somewhere out there right now, there is a version of me who still has time, who still has a father who calls every Sunday, who is still making the exact same mistake I made. This is for that person. Pay attention. I never thought I'd measure my relationship with my father in missed calls, but that's exactly what I have now. 61 of them, all from him, all on Sunday mornings. Same time, every week. I used to answer those calls when I first moved away. Back then, life was simple. It was just me, a new city, and a father who wanted to stay connected. But life changed. I met Sarah. I fell in love. Sundays became ours, slow mornings, breakfast together, small moments that felt important at the time. My phone would ring, I'd see Dad, and I'd think, I'll call him later. Sometimes I did, most times I didn't. And slowly, without noticing, I stopped showing up. It wasn't intentional. That's the worst part. There was no moment where I decided to be a bad son. It just happened. One missed call became two. Two became weeks. And weeks became months. I told myself he was fine, that he understood, that he didn't need me to answer every time. I needed to believe that, but I was wrong. What I didn't see was the reality, that every week he was waiting. He had things he wanted to tell me, small things, and he saved them for Sunday. I didn't know about the notepad he kept beside him. I didn't know those calls meant more to him than I ever allowed myself to imagine. There was one night, 3 a.m., when I finally showed up. I was struggling. My marriage felt uncertain, and I called him. He answered immediately. We talked for real. About failure, about life, about what it means to keep going when you feel lost. He told me he felt that way too, every day. And before we hung up, he said something simple. Call me more. I said I would. I didn't. The last time we spoke was just another normal call. Short, routine, forgettable. I didn't know it would be the last. You never do. Then one Tuesday, my mom called, and everything changed in a single moment. He was gone, just like that. No warning. I drove 6 hours back home in silence, and somewhere along that road I started talking to him, saying everything I should have said before. Apologizing, explaining, telling him I loved him, but there was no answer, just the sound of the road. Now, months later, I understand things I didn't before. The weight of everything I hadn't done stays with me. There's a kind of neglect that doesn't feel like neglect when you're living it. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no single moment where you realize you've become a bad son. It's slow, quiet, almost invisible. One missed call feels normal. One callback you forget is understandable. One Sunday you don't return the call at all because life just got busy. And then suddenly, weeks pass, and you haven't really talked to your father. That's what happened to me. As my life got fuller, my relationship with him got quieter. When I got engaged, I called him, and I still remember his reaction. He paused for a second and then said, "Son, that's the best news I've heard in a long time." His voice broke a little, and for a moment, I felt it how much he loved me. But the moment passed, and I went back to my life. The next Sunday he called again, and I didn't answer. I told myself a story during those years, that he was fine, that he had his own life, that he understood I was busy building mine. It was a comforting story, but it wasn't the truth. The truth is, he was still calling every Sunday, at the same time, without fail. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because that was his way of staying connected to me. There was a whole year where wedding planning took over everything, and during that time he visited once, just once. He drove 6 hours to see me. Brought a bottle, brought a gift, showed up like he always did. And what did I do? I was busy. Busy with seating charts, busy with plans, busy building a future while slowly neglecting someone who was already part of my life. He never complained, never asked why I didn't call, never made me feel guilty. He just kept showing up every Sunday. Same time, like clockwork. And maybe that's why it was so easy to keep letting him down, because he made it easy. I always thought someday things would slow down. Someday I'd have more time. Someday I'd call him regularly again. Someday we'd build a better relationship, but someday never came. Life didn't slow down, and I didn't call. But he did, every Sunday until he couldn't anymore.
The last real conversation I had with my dad wasn't the last time we spoke. The last call was short, normal, forgettable. I didn't know it would be the last. You never do. The last real conversation happened 2 years before he died. It was 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Everything in my life felt like it was falling apart. So I called him. He answered on the second ring. I didn't make small talk. I just asked, "Dad, do you ever feel like you're failing at everything at the same time?" There was a pause. Then he said, "Every single day, son. Every single day. The trick is, you don't stop anyway." We talked for 2 hours. Really talked. About life. About marriage. About fear. About getting things wrong. He told me he was proud of me. Not casually. Not in a simple way. He told me exactly why. Things I had forgotten. He remembered. By the end, I was sitting on the kitchen floor, crying, and he pretended not to notice. Before we hung up, he said, "Call me more, James." Just like that. No pressure, no guilt. Just call me more. I said I would. I didn't. Months passed. Calls I didn't answer. Voicemails I didn't return. Until one Tuesday morning, my mom called. I knew before I answered. He was gone, just like that. No warning, no last conversation, no chance to fix anything. I drove 6 hours back home, alone, and somewhere in that drive, I started talking to him, out loud, saying everything I should have said before. I told him I was sorry. I told him I knew about the notepad. I told him that night at 3 a.m. meant everything to me. I told him I loved him, but there was no answer. Just silence, and the sound of the road, and every missed call catching up to me at once. 8 months have passed. I still reach for my phone on Sunday mornings. Not consciously, not intentionally. It's muscle memory, some part of my brain that hasn't fully accepted the update. I'll be making coffee at 11 a.m., and something in me will register the time and look toward my phone and then remember. And the remembering is its own particular kind of pain. Every week. Without exception. I want to tell you what I've learned. Not the comfortable version, the actual version. The first thing is that love without presence is incomplete. I loved my father. I loved him in the way you love something so fundamental to your existence. The way you love oxygen or solid ground. But love that lives entirely in your interior, while the actual person waits on the other end of an unanswered call. That love doesn't reach anyone. My father could not feel my love from inside my own chest. He could only feel it if I showed up, and I didn't show up enough. The second thing I've learned is about the stories we tell ourselves. I told myself my dad was fine, that he understood. Here's what my mom told me after the funeral. Every Saturday night he'd say, "I'm going to call James tomorrow." Like it was something he looked forward to. She said sometimes he'd mention something during the week, something he read or saw, and he'd say, I'll tell James on Sunday. He was saving things up to tell me all week, every week, for years. And I was letting those calls ring out because I was in the middle of brunch. The gap between his reality and the story I told myself is something I will never fully close. It just lives in me now. Permanent, heavy, mine. The third thing, and this is the one I most need you to hear. Your parents are not permanent. My father was 61. He was not old. He was not sick. He was just there. And then he wasn't. The transition between those two states was a Tuesday morning phone call. That's all the warning I got. That's all the warning you might get. I still have his number saved in my phone. I've opened my contacts and found his name and hovered over the delete button more times than I can count. I want to end by telling you what I did last Sunday. I called my mom at 11 a.m. She answered on the second ring. We talked for an hour and 40 minutes. She told me things about my dad I'd never known, about what kind of young man he was. If your father is still alive, call him. Not later. Not when life slows down. Right now. Call him and talk about nothing. Let him hear your voice and know that you chose on a Sunday morning to choose him. You have something I will never have again. Time. Don't do what I did. While you still can, call him.